Welcome to our segment on subunit related to Etruscan art. This is part 2. In this segment, we're going to be looking at Etruscan architecture and some more statuary. So this is a reconstruction of an Etruscan temple of the 6th century. This was done according to Vitruvius, who was an architect during the Renaissance period. So much of what we know about this temple is really just from documented records and descriptions written by other people. Um, so the reason why these don't survive the way a lot of Greek temples do is because they consisted of mud brick walls. And as you know, mud brick is not as sturdy as stone. But it has many of the similar features as a Greek temple. We see columns, we see an entablature. Those were made out of wood or volcanic rock known as tufa, T-U-F-O, which hardened upon exposure to air. It also incorporated a post and lintel system and a gabled roof. This is that sort of sloping roof with bases, column shafts, and capitals recalling Doric and Ionic orders. So it's a combination, and these are referred to as the Tuscan order because it's Italy. There are some differences, and hopefully you can sort of pick them out. I'm not going to point them out just yet, but I want to see if you guys can figure out any differences. That's why it was so important for you to understand the architecture, the different elevation and the diagram I had you guys do in class, because those architectural terms are going to come up again and again. It'll just be easier if you know them. So here is the plan or model of an Etruscan temple. And so it's a little bit different. It doesn't have, I think, the same maybe balance as a Greek temple. And again, they probably weren't as concerned with this idea of measurement and balance and the way the Greeks were obsessed with it. So if you look at this floor plan, you see that there are a total of 8 columns, and this is sort of, it has a porch. And then you enter, and it looks like it has 3 different rooms, or the cella, this main room, is divided into 3 tiny cellas. So it's quite simple. It's a little bit different. And here's a comparison of a Greek temple, the Parthenon, that we looked at when we studied our Greek unit, and the Etruscan temple. So one of the differences is the colonnade of an Etruscan temple does not go all the way around. Instead, it's created as a porch with 8 columns. So here with the Parthenon, it's a peristyle colonnade, I think that's how you say it, where the colonnade goes all the way around the structure, where here you just have the colonnade in the front, acting as kind of a porch. The cella and the main room is divided into 3 sections, and there's only one obvious entrance. The pediment also lacks any sculpture. Instead, the sculpture is located on the very top of the gabled roof. So instead of the sculpture being in the pediment like we have with the Parthenon, the Greek temple, the Parthenon, we have it on the roofs of the Etruscan temples. And again, this is something that you'll most likely be tested on, and this would obviously be a good essay as well, sort of a compare and contrast of a Greek temple. So in terms of these architectural features, the colonnade with Greek temples, it goes around the entire perimeter of the building. With the Etruscan temple, it only is in the front. Steps, there are 3 steps around the perimeter. That sort of last step is known as the stylobite, and the steps are located only in the front in an Etruscan temple. The porch, the Greek temples usually had one in the front of and behind the cella, and this was to achieve this sort of idea of balance and symmetry. The porch in an Etruscan temple is only in the front of the cella. The podium, this was sort of with a Greek temple, it was small, consisting of 3 steps. Etruscan temples, the podium is tall, again with steps only in the front. The cella in a Greek temple is usually one large room. In the Etruscan temple, it's 3 large rooms. The pediment is usually closed and decorated with sculpture, relief sculpture, or three-dimensional or almost standing sculpture, freestanding sculpture in a Greek temple. And then the pediment in an Etruscan temple is open and not decorated. Sculpture, again, in a Greek temple is usually located in the pediment, metopes, and the frieze of a Greek temple, and the sculpture has been sort of thrown on top of the roof of an Etruscan temple. And again, here's sort of a floor plan. And so you should be able to, if I were to present this to you, just the floor plans, you should be able to tell, which one is the Greek and which one is the Etruscan. Again, reading a floor plan is a skill that you're going to have to, you'll get used to it. And obviously, they will, test you on it on the AP exam, as will I. But here, sort of looking, I think you can start to, you can sort of visualize, see this two-dimensionally and then see how it, correlates to the three-dimensional models above. All right. So we're going to look at some more statue or freestanding sculpture. And this is probably one of the most famous and well-preserved rooftop sculpture, or temple roof sculptures. It's known as the Apollo or Apollo of Veii. And it's a dynamic, striding masterpiece on a large scale of terracotta sculpture, and probably was the likely a central figure in the sort of rooftop narrative sculpture that would have been on the top of the Etruscan temple. His counterpart may have been the less well-preserved figure of Hercules. So there were other figures with whom he struggles in an epic contest over a golden hind, an enormous deer sacred to Apollo's twin sister Artemis. Other figures discovered with these suggest an audience watching the action. Whatever the myth may have been, it was completely an Etruscan innovation to use sculpture in this way. So we see a life-size figure comprised of bay clay, terracotta, again, not stone, terracotta. So this is a different medium than the Greek archaic statues, which were carved from stone. Compared with archaic sculpture, how are they similar and how are they different? So maybe take a moment to kind of look at the two, or think about, let me kind of go to a chorus figure. So on my left is the one of the Greek chorus figures, and then you have the Apollo or Apollo of Veii. Sorry, on my left. Oh my God, I'm so tired. Anyway, on the left side of the screen, you're looking at it just as I am. So I think obviously there's some archaic features. Definitely their archaic smile, the stylized hair. They both exhibit some naturalism and muscularity, but they're also quite different as well. And we'll talk about those. One of the differences is obviously the clothed figure is Etruscan. Again, the Greeks would portray the male nude, and the Etruscans would never have done that. So this is another way you can tell that it's Etruscan because of the sort of toga it wears. And also, again, it seems a bit more animated than the Greek Kori figure, where He's very stiff. His hands are at his sides. He's, striding forward. The Etruscan figure definitely seems to have striding forward much more. His arms are, more out into our space, which is why they probably broke off. And then even the drapery seems a bit animated and livelier. So I think these figures, while they have these sort of Greek archaic features, they definitely are much more livelier. So let me get back. Um, so, this would have been on top of the temple, the gabled roof of an Etruscan temple. And it would have been located on the ridge line of the temple roof here. Here is a close-up, just so you can get a sense. So this statue was originally part of a four-figure scene depicting the labors of Hercules. So as I said last time, his accompanying figures were probably Hercules. The statue of the god Apollo comes from the temple of Minerva in the sanctuary of Porta Dacia at Veii. Again, I want to emphasize the well-developed body and archaic smile demonstrates that the Etruscans had a knowledge of core figures. Since Etruscan art is entirely anonymous, it is impossible to know who may have contributed to such sort of these innovative display strategies that we see the Etruscans, using on the roof of their temples. We may, however, know the name of the artist associated with the workshop that produced the terracotta sculpture. Centuries after these pieces were created, the Roman writer Pliny recorded that in the 6th century BCE, an Etruscan artist by the name of Vulca was summoned from Veii to Rome to decorate the most important temple there, the temple of Juniper Optimus Maximus. The technical knowledge required to produce terracotta sculpture at such a large scale was considerable, and it may have just been the master sculptor Volca whose skill at Portantio, I'm saying it wrong, earned him not only a prestigious commission in Rome, but a place in the history books as well. So you have to think too, I mean, terracotta is it's delicate. It's way more delicate than stone. So doing these life-size sculptures in terracotta or clay really did require quite a bit of skill. So again, let's compare with the archaic sculpture, Greek sculpture. How are they different? Smile, style, how are they similar or different? The similarities are the smile, the stylized hair, some naturalism and muscularity. They're both life-size. However, they are in different mediums. The Greek archaic statue was carved in stone, while the Etruscan figure is terracotta and clay. Etruscan figures is clothed, where the Greek figure is nude, and the drapery is depicted with these sort of knife-like edges that are very animated. Again, the pose of the Apullo is much more dynamic and less rigid than the Greek counterpart. The arms are actually protruding into this space, into our space, and helps give us a sense of this movement. All right, so in our next segment, we're going to be looking at Roman art. So the Etruscans coexisted with the Greeks, but they were located on the Italian peninsula. And then the Romans end up conquering the Etruscans. But as we talked about in our introduction, we see that they absorb a lot of, the Etruscans definitely influenced the Romans and therefore influenced us as Westerners. So stay tuned. Have a good weekend. Bye.